Hi there, I'm Shane and I will be presenting our CSA challenge for the NASA Space Apps Challenge 2023. Our project is SatPulse and our group is the Milky Way Coders. So we took on the CSA challenge number 1 and focus on satellite operators. And so what we really wanted to do was identify some of the threats that satellite operators and their satellites face while in orbit. So some of those threats are other satellites in orbit, debris that is orbiting near the satellites, as well as space weather that can impact the satellites and its readings. So with the increased number of satellites in orbit today, which has gone up significantly over the last few years, it's even more important to be aware of the things that are around us and the potential for things to impact each other. So we really want to know where everything is around us so that we can make adjustments, so we ensure that we do not have a cascading effect of debris fields being created in our orbit. So some of the big things that we focused on were collision avoidance. And so these are the metrics that we really want to give to our user. So some of those metrics are satellite conjunctions, so two satellites that have a similar orbit and may impact each other. And we also had debris conjunctions, so debris that may be coming into contact with our satellite's orbit. We also had objects entering or exiting orbit. And so those things may cross through our orbit as they are decaying out of their own orbit or being launched into orbit. And finally, asteroid conjunctions, which are asteroids that may pass into Earth's orbit and could interact with our satellite's orbit. So next we have the space weather risks, and so these are space weather events that we thought would be important to monitor. So we have proton flux, which are high energy particles that can cause difficulties in sensor measurements. We have solar flux, which is the amount of energy coming from the sun and can cause lots of noise in transmitted data, and so when that's high, you won't be getting clear data. And we also wanted to monitor geomagnetic fields. And so we wanted to monitor that because it can predict geomagnetic storms, which are important for keeping the satellite safe in operation, as well as the instrumentation on it. And finally, X-ray flux, which measures the high energy electromagnetic waves that are coming from the sun, which can be very damaging on Earth, as well as to a satellite. So I will now do a quick walkthrough of the website. So we really wanted to make this accessible. So the first thing that you'll see is the main option is to select your satellites. You can choose any satellites you like. So this gives some flexibility for space operators who may be working on multiple, maybe working on one. They can choose and they will have access to the one they're looking for. And so then in the conjunction table, we can see other satellites and debris that are coming close to our chosen satellites, and we can sort them by parts. We can also see some of the probabilities of them colliding with us, which is very helpful for the satellite operator to know. Then in close approaches, we see the asteroids and some of the satellites that they're impacting and some of the distances that they are from us. So that tells us a little bit about how the asteroid might interact with our satellite. And then in the decay and re-entry tab, we see things that will be coming in and out of orbit, so satellites that are being decommissioned potentially or being launched, and it tells us which of our satellites might be impacted by that and some of the information about the launching satellite. Next, we have space weather, which we've got some data visualization. So again, going over those flux data as well as the X-ray flares. And so we're displaying values kind of indicating some of the levels that are acceptable and not acceptable. And then, for proton flux, different variations of levels, and giving lots of information to the user so that they can quickly understand what the weather events are looking like recently, so they can predict future events and daily events. Finally, we have the neighboring satellites. So this is just going to tell us information about satellites in our near proximity to the satellites we've chosen, and some information about where they are, and their kind of orbit, and what type of object they are as well. So all this information can be brought together to give a satellite operator a better understanding of the environment around them, so they can safely operate their satellite and keep orbit clean from debris.